Hey, hello, I'm Kråkan, also known as Corvus Cornix, and welcome to Closet Movie Rambles, where I talk about old movies that I found in my closet while cleaning. This week's movie is Bride of Frankenstein from 1935, and it's about 1 hour and 40 minutes long. So the movie starts with a panning shot to a castle, and three people are in it, discussing more or less the event of the first movie. They summarize it, and one of them is supposedly the author of the book. So right at the end of the first Frankenstein movie, the mill was burned down and supposedly the monster died inside with the flames. So yeah, that's where the movie picks up. So a guy who is obsessed with seeing the monster dead, he goes to check it out and he falls down into the rubble, and of course the monster isn't dead. He survived because the bottom of the mill was filled with water. So the monster actually kills the guy off, and he climbs up and he also kills the guy's wife on the way out, which is kind of sad. So Henry Frankenstein, the one who made the monster in the first place, he's taken home to recover from the whole ordeal, and in the middle of the night, a doctor named Pretorius knocks on his door and the maid goes to open up. So Dr. Pretorius is obsessed with Frankenstein's experiment, and he also has made experiments of his own that he wants to show Frankenstein. So at Dr. Pretorius' place, he presents a glass of gin, and this is kind of one of the funnier scenes where, "You like gin?" he says. "It's my only weakness." And he says this throughout the movie a couple of times, and it's always something else that being his weakness, I guess. So Dr. Pretorius has actually made mini people about 1 decimeter tall, a couple of inches for you Americans. And it's a really cool special effect. These small kind of creatures, one is like a ballerina, another is a king or a queen and a bishop. And I don't know, maybe he likes some form of chess or something, I don't know. The next morning, the monster is out and about, and he's actually in the woods, and he scares a woman, and she falls into a pond, and 2 hunters come upon him and chase him, and he gets shot. And then the townspeople rally because they get told by the monster, and the monster is actually taken in. And about 15 seconds later, he escapes the trap, and he wanders out. He wanders out in the woods into a gypsy camp, and because he smells food and he's hungry, and he burns himself on a fire. And then he leaves. Sometime later, the monster hears an old man playing a violin, and he likes the music, and the man is blind, so he doesn't know that he's a monster. He just thinks that the monster is somewhat mute, so he invites the monster into his house. The blind man actually helps him because he's burned, gives him some food, and there's some tears, some sweet kind of connection there, and then the the monsters learn to speak a bit, which is kind of funny. I guess the little action that Boris Karloff got from speaking is within these lines. So the man presents a cigar, and of course he's going to light it with the fire, and the monster knows that fire is bad, so he says like "fire bad" or something, and kind of funny. But the monster smokes a bit, and the man plays some more violin, which makes the monster very happy. Kind of a wholesome moment, actually. So 2 hunters enter the blind man, the hermit's hut, and there is some commotion and a fire is started. So the old man is taken away by the hunters, and the monster is angry and sad, and he goes to hide in a grave for some reason. And in this grave chamber, it turns out that Dr. Pretorius is there with 2 of his goons, trying to get a body for the experiment that supposedly Dr. Frankenstein and him are supposed to do, because Dr. Pretorius wants to create life. He wants to make the female version of the monster. So a bit later, the goons leave and Pretorius is left to his own devices, which he spent eating and getting drunk. And the monster just wanders in, and Pretorius offers him a drink. And they talk it out, basically. So sometime later, Dr. Pretorius goes to see Henry, and Henry's wife is not happy about it because things are going rather well, and then he shows up, basically. The monster goes outside as Henry and Pretorius talk, and the monster goes and grabs Henry's wife. And Henry is forced to help Pretorius make the monster, basically. So the body is prepared, and there's a storm brewing. They're back in Henry's old lab at there's like a watchtower, like a abandoned tower, basically. And then the experiment works, and the creation is made, also dressed because she was in like bandages before. And then the monster goes to see his bride-to-be, but surprise, surprise, she doesn't like him at all, and in fact she screams. So the deal that the monster and Pretorius had was that Pretorius was to create a bride for him so that he could live a happy life as a monster, I guess. But none of that is gonna happen now, so for some stupid reason, this abandoned castle or tower has a self-destruct lever mounted on the wall. So the monster just tells Henry and his wife to get out of there, and he pulls the lever, blowing up Dr. Pretorius, his bride, and himself in the process. And that's pretty much the end of the movie. So what do I think about this movie, The Bride of Frankenstein? It's a good movie. Boris Karloff has more to say in this movie, which is good, and the monster actually gets some, character, more development. And in the beginning of the movie, he's still this staggering brute that just kills people for no reason, and then he develops, he gets friends, and he learns a couple of things along the way, learns to speak a bit more, learn to think for himself, and in the end, I think he made the right choice. It's probably not a movie that I can recommend to anybody, but it's one of those classic movies that I think you have to see at least once because it's actually kind of good. So anyway, thanks for listening and or watching, and take care.